Yeah.
But I think we should move on to another topic, another big
Agreed.
story that came out over the last couple of weeks, which is that the Metropolitan Opera has a couple of initiatives as it tries to find ways to reconnect with the community now that the Opera Guild is defunct. So why don't you break it down for us?
So there's three new initiatives. Number one is Opening Act. Opening Act will bring opera to the youngest audience members with a new series of interactive family workshops. The program will be designed for children ages 4 to 8 and their guardians, and will explore the fundamentals of theatrical storytelling through movement, play, hands-on activities, and special performances. The first program will be Donizetti's La Fille de Regiment, and the second one will be La Bohème. The second initiative is Tuesday Talks, a new series of free 30-minute pre-performance lectures by leading scholars and Met staff. And finally, the last one is an expansion of the Under 40 program with more performances and additional seating options ranging from $50 to $110. So yeah, we were mixed on this because for the opening act, it's $250 if you have two children. So basically, the registration fee is $200 for guardian and child, and then if you have an extra child, it's $50. I think for people who right now are, making cut costs because the economy is not great, it's not doing well. People are saving money on entertainment. They're not going to the movies. They're not going to the opera. They're not doing a lot of things. I think, in my opinion, this program, which is an interesting program about introducing opera to children, and opera is expensive, so I understand why they have to charge, but it's not affordable for a middle class family who has to choose whether they buy a organic or regular priced tomato sauce, or something else at the grocery store. I just think that it doesn't really um justify. I wouldn't do it if I had children. I mean, I think it's too expensive.
I mean, cost aside, I do think that it is a good initiative, and I do think that starting off with something like Fille Gimon, for example, is perfect. Um, I do think that the positive of this initiative too is that it might, and again, I don't know what the Mets programming is down the line, but I do think it could recontextualize some of the programming as more family friendly, and thus, attract that kind of group towards more than just the Magic Flute, right? Because that's their big holiday opera that they show every year. Or the occasional Hansel and Gretel, though I don't think they've done that one recently. So I mean, I do think that, and like you've said, you love the bel canto repertoire. There's a lot of great comedies in the bel canto repertoire, which I think would be very family friendly. L'Elisir d'Amore is another one that comes to mind right away. So I do think that this kind of program, while I do agree with the cost, because I don't know, when I ask myself questions about, okay, so who are they aiming for here? Like, maybe most families that live in New York City, that might not be too crazy. People that live in
I
the Upper
disagree.
West Side, fair.
But
People
then
who
your
can,
Upper West Side, you're talking about a specific class. You're not talking about everyday man. And honestly, I don't think that that's really who they're trying to bring it to. I think they're
well,
trying to just bring it to the same audiences.
I do think that it's a solid beginning. I do think it's important to big picture, yes, because I think the schools are really where the initiatives need to begin. I think that, again, it's tricky because the Met can't do everything, and they got to start small and they got to
No.
branch out. And I think that this initiative of all of them, um, I definitely think it's potentially the most important because you got to foment a culture of music for the next generation so that
So
the
you
opera
should make
house.
it a little bit more populous, in my opinion. And I don't think that paying $200 is something that most families, at least middle class families, can afford. And I think that,
It still needs to happen though. There needs to
sure,
be a
it can.
cost,
So then, my opinion, they should have brought it to schools.
which is hard because you gotta probably consult with the mayorship and the government of the state of the city of New York. So I don't know. I mean, I do think that cost is definitely a question in contention, but um I do think it's an important initiative, and so it was going to cost something. Maybe I don't
Right.
know. Maybe there's a scholarship possibility in there to bring in for other like, families that might find the cost prohibitive. But of course, what are the lines that you draw there? What do how do you structure that so that maybe you do include people that might find $200 prohibitive right now, while also continuing to, for the people that don't care about that cost, say, you know what,
Right.
like I'll do it. Again, I do think $200 is a debatable situation because for some people, like, it's not crazy. It's not a
Right.
thousand, it's not, it's, I don't know. I don't know if I completely am on board with you. I think this is the one where we might be most in disagreement about. The second initiative, the Tuesday Talks, I think in general it's fine. I think it's good. It's nothing like super, not, that's not like reinventing the wheel. But I do think it's important that they try and like engage people prior to performance. I'm interested to see how, I mean, I guess it's happening at List Hall, I imagine.
That's happening in this hall.
So, I don't necessarily think it's super groundbreaking. But it's good that it's there. It's good that it's there. It's good that it's
Yeah, but you
programmed.
know what they should do? They should make the concerts later because people go out of work by 6 o'clock. Nobody's gonna make List Hall unless they want to have dinner and whatnot. So it is very challenging as well that they're gonna that it starts so early.
But other institutions do it and they pull it off. And also you don't
Yeah.
have to go, it's voluntary. I don't
No, it's
really.
voluntarily, but I don't think it's going to break the wheel, and I don't think it's going to really actually create much of a new audience. As I stated, I think mostly it's going to be the older audience that doesn't work, that's retired, that probably could go 30 minutes before, but the people
Well,
that actually have to go work, pick up children, or do this and want to go to the opera performance, they're not going to go 30 minutes before.
but I do think again, just the overarching theme of the initiatives. I think that if the first initiative is aiming at the next generation,
Right.
and the third initiative is aiming at the millennials, the current
Mm-hmm.
generation, if you will. This one's definitely more geared toward, like you said, an older audience that
Mm-hmm.
probably has more time, and so it's kind of keeps them invested and keeps them
Right.
involved.
Yeah.
So again, for me, this is a lot of companies do this, so I don't think it's a big deal.
No, 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 it's
I
not a
don't think
big
it's gonna
deal.
bring in maybe new audiences, but I do think it presents an opportunity to interact with opera in a different way. Again, I think it's just so important that the institution like the Met, which I've always mentioned it symbolically, right? You go up Broadway and you get to Lincoln Center and you got to go all the way back. The Met is all the way at the back of Lincoln Center. It's like you have to go to the Met. The Met's not coming to you. It's not as easily accessible as other venues that are right on Broadway. So just the metaphorical, physical manifestation of that, I think it is important that the Met reach out to the community in a different way.
Right.
And this is the start of it, or the restart of it, because they did used to do other programs at the Guild. This one's fine for me. I think the last one's the one where I have questions.
Honestly, the last one I have really no issues with. I mean, under 40 program, I mean, great. They're gonna do more pre-performance parties and cocktails and give more chance for people to go and be able to interact with one another, meet younger people who might be interested in the opera and create more of a
But this is the
social
one.
gathering.
This is the one where I say if you really want to do that, then you got to offer a different price range, because I do. I mean, and again, we can make the argument. People are like, well, yeah, but millenniums go and pay hundreds of dollars for an
Taylor
Ariana Grande
Swift?
concert, a Taylor Swift concert. Yeah, but they're not willing to do that for the opera. But on some level, it's like, I do think that it comes down to, they still see it as a bit more. There's a perception around it. I do think that if.
Well, I mean, let's just face it, like, someone like Taylor Swift can create an event around something. I mean, for God's sakes, her latest album that she just announced, she made an event out of it. So I think when we've talked about this many times is how do you make opera an event? And I think in a way this creates kind of that idea of an event or something like that. I do question though, for example, like economics, finances. We've been talking about how the Met's been running low on their endowment and they haven't really been able to sell tickets, and they've had this under 40 program before, so this is not a new initiative. They're just expanding upon it because it has been successful. I think it's an important initiative to be able to bring young people to the opera, and it's probably, in my opinion, the better of the two. But I there are questions that you have to ask. How successful is this, and how much money are you actually losing uh by discounting tickets?
And I'm more along the lines that, again, I think the thing for me is, for example, I'm the target for that, or I don't know if I'm the target for that, because I'm under 40 and I do love opera, but I've never really, I mean, I've never really I mean, I've
Because they've
heard
only
about
been
it.
5 days.
I've heard
Yeah,
about it. But I've never really engaged with it, because I don't know what it is, to be honest with
yeah.
you, aside from, under 40s, it's some sort of term. So I don't know. I guess it is popular. Maybe I'm completely wrong about it, but I've never really, I don't really know what it is, and I don't know that the initiative made me feel like you said, make an event out of it. But what kind of event are we talking about? You know? because
Yeah, I don't know what it is
you
either.
know,
I haven't seen it.
that's because the other ones feel a little bit more. One of them is a very conservative measure, but it's specific. You're bringing a scholar, they're going to talk to people. The other one's, you know, something very geared towards children. It feels very tactile. This is a party. Yeah.
In my opinion, the one that I really liked the most that they didn't even announce was the Sunday talkbacks after certain performances. I find those to be more entertaining because at least we're actually being able to have a Q&A with the artist right after their performance. And quite frankly, I saw the Tosca that they did with Sandra Rodonowski, Bryn Tervel, and Brian Jade. And it was just entertaining just to hear the performers speak about their work and engaging and being human beings. And I've always said, and I always feel that for me, um, I engage with an artist more than I engage with a production. I engage with a personality than I engage with something intellectual because they're transmitting emotions. And when I saw that Q&A after that Tosca performance, I was even more energized because I love I love just listening to them talk about the passion that they have for the music.
Do you know if these under 40 events ever feature, you know, known artists coming in and joining in the conversation?
I don't, but I do know that they've in at some points brought drag queens.
Okay. I mean, again, I might be completely off the mark here, and I suspect that I might be. That initiative didn't. I guess in the overall, I guess our overall view on this was that this didn't feel like something completely unique. You know that I mean, they
Yeah,
went out of their way to kind of announce it as this, hey, we're doing these initiatives, and it didn't really feel like it was something that um
it wasn't
I guess when you have
groundbreaking.
an announcement like that of like, hey, we're gonna do these initiatives, you always look forward to something that feels completely new and fresh.
Hmm.
Again, I think the one for kids was probably the one where I was like, okay, it's not completely new, but at least you know it feels tactile and specific. Um, the other ones, the under 40, I guess, just and this might be just a very personal thing, right? Because again, I've never attended one of these and never been very interested in it. It didn't really say to me, it didn't scream to me, hey, like this is how you bring in a new community. But again, I might be completely wrong. This might be a very successful initiative and they're just looking to expand it. And if that's the case, then good on them, you know, to lock in on an audience that's or something that's being received well and building on it. And if that's the case, then I have to say I tip my hat. But personally, for me reading this news, it just didn't really feel like it was anything particularly unique or new outside of what we've already seen from the company.
So then maybe this season we should try one of those under 40 performances and see if we enjoy it.
Maybe, and then maybe we'll come back and talk about it in one of our Patreon exclusive episodes. Sure,
Yeah,
why
that would
not?
be fun. That would be fun.